Aditya Arya, a prominent commercial and travel photographer since 1980, excels in advertising, corporate, and travel photography, especially products, interiors, and food. He founded the India Photo Archive Foundation and the Neil Dongre Awards grants for excellence in photography. He manages Museo Camera, India's sole photography and camera museum, housing over 3,000 rare cameras. He mentors digital artists and revives vintage photographic processes, solidifying his legacy in the industry.
So, how did you pick up the camera? How did that happen? Just let's go back to that moment.
So we had a photography society in college, which was fantastic. We had dark rooms, we had cameras, we had film processing equipment, everything that one could dream of. So,
Wow.
it was a fabulous place to experiment, to do
This
things
was at St. Stephen's
at
itself?
at St. Stephen's. And uh, learning was a different kind of uh, process, I would say. It meant going to library, reading books. There was no
Computers then.
there was no Facebook, WhatsApp, or Google to look for information. So it was more immersive.
What was your first photograph like? That the one that you cherish and think of as really special?
Hanging around college, shooting I created a very interesting archive of college during my days of what I saw in the college and what I saw of the college. And later on, the first thing which I did was I took to travel because I wanted to see places, I wanted to explore the country. So I started traveling. I pushed off to remote areas in India and started doing my own projects. Then in 80s, I pushed off to Nagaland, and that's where I worked. I shot a personal project which culminated in a book.
Really?
Nagaland was one big major project. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Tell us a little bit about how you then began to disseminate your photography, because in those days exhibitions were rare, galleries were rare.
It was very rare to be uh, witness to a show or there was practically nothing happening. There were few couple of private galleries, but we used to go to NGMA or National Museum to see the shows, what's happening. But there were magazines like Swagat and Namaskar,
Namaskar, yes.
which were produced in Singapore and Hong Kong, and those were fantastic. And one worked for them. I was lucky.
You got into that,
Yeah.
doing that. So then you managed to publish your work.
Oh, I kind of used to make sure that every year I would do few assignments
Assignments.
for them.
Okay, all right. Tell us about your first exhibition.
Happened way back in early 90s, which was the culmination of my Nagaland project. It happened at India Habitat Center. It was fun to see how people react to shows, and especially it was important because it was about these remote Naga tribes. But things had changed for me by then. I had moved on from travel photography to advertising. So, somehow I didn't have time to really appreciate, or I'd moved on.
What was the advertising world like that time?
Oh, advertising world was very interesting. I tell you, every day was a new day. One day you were shooting products, next day you were shooting mines, third day you were shooting power plants. So one was traveling, one was shooting, and I tell you, I got to see India, I got to meet people, I got to see places which wouldn't have been possible.
Now, to just go back a little bit, I wanted you to talk about the formation of the Museo camera.
So, what is Museo Camera? Is and why was it created? It's something which I feel very strongly about. Is the analog, the journey of photography, how the silver grains See, there was a time we could touch and feel the film and the prints. You can't touch the pixels today, can you? So it's very interesting how the silver grains turned into the pixels of today. The Museo camera traces this entire journey through its collection of 4,000-5,000 cameras and objects, how things actually evolved.
Tell us about the history behind how that was formed.
So, as you said, I studied history and I started reading about the history of photography, and I was very surprised. There were very few places you could go to learn about the history of photography. And so I started collecting equipment, photographic ephemera, like ads and various images from 19th century of famous studios. I ended up collecting many thousands of them. So we have 4,000-5,000 cameras. And for me, this was a hobby. Nothing started with the idea of one day creating a museum. So it was all parked in the basement of my house where people could come on the weekends, talk to me. And that's when some people said, look, let's create a larger space. And I was lucky. Some wise officers liked my idea, and the museum evolved out of that. And it's a crowd-funded museum. It's one of the most unique museum. And as you said, it's not a museum, one of the largest museum in Delhi. We are the largest photography museum of its kind in Asia.
In Asia.
It's not about showcasing images. It's actually about tracing the history of photography through the evolution of the craft. See, it's very interesting. Photography is a very interesting art form which has a very deep link with the craft. The craft has been evolving. Every day there is a new technique, a new gadget. And that's what's been happening right from the day photography was invented and announced to the world on 19th August 1839, that newer techniques, newer gadgets, newer processes, newer lenses, and that journey hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
It just continues to evolve. So this is a place to understand the journey of the photography.
The photography. And in terms of the location, can you tell us a little bit about how, the museum, when you visit it, it is spread over a lovely, garden-like atmosphere, and then you walk in, and it's 3 floors which are dedicated to photography. And I've seen the pictures of it being built.
It's very interesting.
Tell us about that.
It evolved out of a badminton court, which was not being used and had turned into a shadi ghar, and that's the place which I decided to pitch for, and the government agreed. So we didn't have any formal architects on board, designers. They were friends. They were friends like you who just said, "Yeah, look, let's just do it. What kind of help do you need?" And this is, we'll convert your idea into a working drawing. Somebody said, I can calculate this for you. So people just walked in from all walks of life and helped me create that place.
That is wonderful. So it was like as if everybody had contributed to the museum camera on their own accord.
Absolutely. If you walk in, you will see their names on the boards, and we didn't have the money. It was being crowd-funded, and we actually created a building within a building inside the badminton court.
Wow.
And so that is a very interesting journey. Yeah.
A short cow and a short cow shit. This is shit. What have you done?
Akash Das, a prominent advertising and fashion photographer acclaimed for his fine art and art wildlife photography. With multiple prestigious awards to his name, he has held over 10 solo exhibitions in esteemed galleries across Montevideo, Hamburg, Miami, and Paris. Recognized as a trailblazer in Indian advertising, he is celebrated for his pioneering work in visual communication and photography.
How did you get into photography?
I was still very young then, and I was in college. I joined Delhi College of Art, which was like I was doing fine art over there. So it was 5 years project, and first year you are always given a camera to do the photographic course over there.
Right.
You know, those days we didn't have any camera. I didn't have any cameras. Only there were 15 students because it's a very, very exclusive college. Only 15 students is to be taken out of hundreds of students applying there.
Yeah.
Only 15 students were taken. And not everybody had a camera. So the college had a camera which was like Yashica 635, which you see like this from the top, you know.
Okay.
They are twin lens cameras. So those were the cameras. But the problem was the teacher only told you how to operate the camera, but never gave you an opportunity to click it.
Oh.
And he said that end of the year you have to present 3 pictures and you'll be given marks on it.
Oh.
So because and then you are going to the next year, so obviously it's very important for you. So my turn came. Everybody, there are 10 students who are doing this. Out of 15, 10 were doing photography. So some of them, 3 or 4 of them had their own cameras. So they would go out every day and on the street they would shoot. I would see, I'll go out with them. And the subject was cow. So, so everybody used to shoot, like in Delhi, all around there are cows, you see. So somebody is lying down on the floor and on the road and shooting the cow. Somebody is from the front. What I did was I took the camera last day. I said I want to watch everyone, then I will do the, because how many ways you can shoot a cow? You know,
Right.
everybody has covered it. 10 people have covered, 9 people have covered in various angles, you know.
Yeah.
So last day, the camera came to me and I took the camera and I went to Jama Masjid. In the center of the road, some people were walking past over there and I saw in the middle of the road, one of the gullies, there's a cow dung. So, and the cow is walking away, just it's a fresh cow dung and a cow is walking away. So I lied down, I kept the camera on the ground because it is very, the light was low. I didn't know about aperture and other things. Our teacher has told us that if this is it, then you do f/60th of a second, you shoot, you know, open aperture, you shoot. So they had given me very basic this thing.
Theoretical knowledge.
So I put the camera there. I said, whatever it is, I shot one picture, the cow dung and the cow, and another picture I shot, slightly higher, and you have to, each time you have to roll. Forward the roll, okay. Then that was one picture. Because you are given only one roll, there are 12 pictures. So in a year, you have to present 3 pictures, and from the 12 pictures, you know, how this thing, you are under pressure.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and I saw another cow. There is a, you know, यहाँ पे गाय का दूध का घी मिलता है यहाँ पे. And the cow came in and I was waiting there and I shot. I just got one shot and next one was shaky. That I saw the cow and यहाँ पे गाय का दूध का घी मिलता है. ठीक है. So like that I made 3 pictures. I came back. I developed them myself. They helped me, of course. Then made prints and presented. So everybody had already finished their course, so they had already presented. So I presented my 3 pictures, and Mr. Mahajan, who was a professor, and he looked at it and he said, "Are you joking?" I said, "Why, sir? Why am I joking?" He says, "Everybody has shot cow and has shot cow shit. This is shit. What have you done? You know." So I said, "But sir, when you see the shit, you remember the cow, no? So there is a concept behind it. Okay, you come and meet me in my room." Because in front of other students, I said this. So I was fumbling, but I explained. I said, "Look, this is a conceptual shot. The cow and the ghee, you know, it's a part of this thing.
There's
you know,
a story behind it.
Story behind it. It is conceptual shoot. So I couldn't explain like that then, but I said there's a story behind it. So I got the highest mark.
Wow.
Called me to his room, he hugged me, and he said, the only one who has shot concept.
Yeah.
So that was my first picture, and I never looked back after.
So tell us a little bit about your journey in the advertising world.
You see, I've started very early. I'm in the 1980s. I
80s,
started
yeah.
my advertising career, and there were not very many photographers then. So I used to, conceive the idea and all that. Unfortunately, there's one very famous photographer called Prabhuda Das Gupta. Is no more. He was a copywriter and I was art director. That time there was no team actually. You had to work with anybody and everybody. But we made a team and we made a deal that we'll not leave this team and we'll work together. So he had a camera, and we started actually. I started designing my campaigns and all that, and then I would go out to look for photographers. The client will approve it. When you go to a photographer, and that photographer is industrial photographer, and there were no fashion photographer.
Right.
Okay, so human photography used to happen in advertising. Very, very few people were there, especially in Delhi. Okay, so I would go there and find that they are clicking at the wrong moment.
Going from this very everyday process to something which is totally out there, wildlife. How did you sort of bring those two disparate worlds together, and how did you begin your journey as a wildlife photographer?
Once in Paris, I was doing an exhibition, and this journalist had obviously done some homework about me, and then she asked me, "You have shown so many, big, huge elephants who are wild, who are very, aggressive. At the same time, I know that you are doing what you call fashion photography, and where person you take pictures of are very lean and thin and tall and all that, and here bulky elephants. How do you correlate both? There's such a vast difference.
Right.
So I said simply that the models I shoot, who are beautiful from outside but very wild from inside, and the elephants I shoot, they are very wild from outside and beautiful from inside.
What do you see is the road ahead for photography?
The other day, I was doing a big seminar for Nikon. One girl came and said, "I'm very, very passionate about photography. So how do I go about it?" So I said, "Show me some work." She said, "No, I've not started as yet." I said, "Look, don't misinterpret the word passion. Passionate, you say when you're doing some work, when you have created body of work, and that shows the passion. Passion is not that I want to do it." So you have to be, passionate means you have to wholeheartedly have to do. You don't care in the world who will say. If you are passionate about something, do it passionately. That is how all these biggest cricketers, biggest tennis players, biggest artists, they become somebody,
Right.
because they are passionate and they don't listen to anyone.
True.
That is what is passion.
Right. So that you have to be focused and
Yeah.
self-assured.
Yeah.
Bandeep Singh, one of India's prominent editorial photographers, renowned for his striking portraits, commands respect in the realm of fine art photography as well. A recipient of the esteemed Charles Wallace Fellowship in Photography, his works adorn the permanent collection of the Essel Museum of Contemporary Art in Vilna. Presently, he holds the distinguished position of Group Photo Editor within the esteemed India Today Group.
How you got into photography?
Let me put it this way, that I didn't become a photographer. Photography discovered me.
Wow.
And it happened on a college trip when I was on an NSS trip to Manali. And I had borrowed a small point and shoot camera from a friend, because everybody wanted their pictures. So we were on the second day of the trek. We were camping on the banks of the Bias. On our second day, we were on a trek. And while trekking, I had the camera with me, and we passed a village. And this was around, 5 o'clock in the evening.
Oh.
And this was in the month of June. and they had the woman of the house had laid out some wheat to dry on the roof of the house, and she was sitting spreading that wheat. And what had happened in the mountains, sometimes there is a particular quality of evening light with the setting sun.
Yeah.
The sun reclines, and and there's a cloud cover of gray, so the dissipation of light does not happen. So with the
Right.
neutral gray on the clouds, there's an extremely saturated light that comes, and that light happened that day, and it was absolutely golden. And
Magical.
it caught the golden sheaves of wheat, and it was as if the woman was spreading gold on the roof.
Wow.
And I saw that with my camera, and that moment, I feel, I can now in hindsight say that was the moment, of the proverbial fish, taking the hook,
Ah.
and I was snapped up by photography. What I saw through my viewfinder, it was a point and shoot camera. It was not a DSLR. You were seeing through a separate viewfinder, not through the lens of the camera. But what you were seeing, I was completely mesmerized with that.
Do you make any distinction between analog and digital? Having done analog
No,
photography?
I don't believe in those distinctions at all.
Okay.
I'm a complete digital person now, and I have the only distinctions is some photographers believe the analog process of not being able to see the image and the delay in your accessing the final image creates a certain kind of a extra engagement with the scene. I don't, it is not a part of my practice. For me, the engagement with the scene is irrespectively, it is governed by my own, processes and my own mental states. And to me, whether I see the image immediately or see the image later, that is not a very important thing. But now that we have access to digital photography, I feel it's a huge advantage to be able to do that.
Right.
Huge advantage.
Has there been anyone that you've felt who passed away that I wish I had taken his photograph or I'd taken her photograph? And then how do you sort of deal with that?
Oh yes, there are people who I always wanted to photograph. One person, my heart still aches, haven't been able to photograph, is Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. I was very young that time, and I remember, he had come to perform in Siri Fort, and I had no means to buy the ticket, and I couldn't see the performance. And all I did was I managed to, jump over the wall and managed to reach the backstage somehow. And but that guard caught me, and he wouldn't let me enter, and I could only see a glimpse of him through the wings of the stage, and I couldn't, do anything, and I had to leave. And that still hurts, that
I can imagine.
and he passed away shortly after that. Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan Sahab, I really wanted to photograph.
Your advice to the upcoming generations?
I don't advise people on techniques and what to do, what camera to use, and all that. My primary advice is the larger things that have worked for me. Learn from maximum sources. Don't just learn from photography. Learn from everything. Become a student of the art, and the art will reward you. It will come into your work. It will flow through your work. A lot of times, something that I observe, which is very typical of this generation, if I may use the word, is I see an impatience. I don't see the application and this kind of wrestling with the craft. I see an impatience to create an image and put it out there.
Yeah.
and seek instant gratification of, the likes and the responses and followers. And while all this has its advantages, and it inspires you to do work, but it somehow short circuits your growth
That growth.
process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, the urgency to put an image out there, to put something out there, somewhere, I feel is a process which stops a thing. It stops an inquiry. Or rather, if I may put it more openly, it pauses an inquiry, not stops, pauses an inquiry. If you can stop, if you cannot allow that pause to happen in your constant inquiry and evolution, that is, anything that allows that to happen is what is desired and is what you should imbibe. That's my advice.